Tim, is that an argument, number one rival, UCLA, Notre Dame?
Not even close.
No?
Yeah. Well, okay. So here's the thing. If you ask alumni, if you ask especially a guy who lived through the 90s, so if you ask a guy who lived through the 90s, he's going to tell you, oh, the 80s and so let me rephrase it. If you lived through the 80s and the 90s when we lost or tied Notre Dame 13 straight years, right? You're going to say Notre Dame, like my generation. If you I've heard if you talk to the players, they will tell you it's UCLA. Why? Because they know all these dudes. They see them in town. They know each other. It's a little closer rivalry. And then if you're the younger generation, a little bit younger, who sat through those 8 years of UCLA, then maybe you might have that kind of a scenario. But man, the 90s were bad for our rivalry. But yeah, I mean, traditionally, I mean, no, we play UCLA to get to the Rose Bowl. We played games usually against Notre Dame to win the national championship. And that's where, for me, why they're our number one rivalry. I mean, how many Heisman trophies were decided that SC Notre Dame game? How many national championships on both sides were decided in that game, USC versus Notre Dame? It is absolutely, it's not even close in my opinion. Yeah.
I mean, that's college football royalty. That is in the select category of those Cadillac elite rivalries. USC UCLA, just as a comparison to what Tim was illustrating. I mean, the one USC UCLA game which stands out but way above all others was 1967 with OJ's cutback run. That was a matchup of two top four teams. The national title was very legitimately on the line. You don't have other USC UCLA games throughout history with remotely the same magnitude, historical resonance, with the same, we're still talking about it 50 years later kind of feel. That really underscores the point about the Grand Canyon sized gulf between USC UCLA and USC Notre Dame as a top of the line college football rivalry.
To me, they're just different. So I don't disagree with either one of you, because from the perspective that both of you have that's entrenched in USC, I can't argue that. I'm just a college football guy who has watched both games thinking this is as good as it gets in different ways. But growing up and being 8, 9, 10 years old and watching Ohio State at Michigan and then USC and UCLA directly after, that's just so ingrained in my memory.
You almost have it to where, because I mean, you have Michigan, who's kind of a close example, not the same, close example where they had for years they were playing Notre Dame, and then every year playing Ohio State in conference. But the thing is with Michigan, they were years after Chrysler pissed them off that they didn't play for like decades, in that rivalry, and then that's been off and on, off and on. USC Notre Dame has been every single year except for 2 years in World War II and 1 year for the COVID year. Other than that, USC has played them that rivalry every single year. And like I said, just like how many national championships were won on that game and how many national championships were lost, by the way, right? Well, the other team played spoiler. They had no stake in it, but they spoiled it. And then on top of that, how many guys, I mean, you think about Caleb Williams, Carson Palmer, Reggie Bush, these guys, they shine out in that game, and it just sets some, because it's just a game everyone tuned into. I think a lot of the luster has come off of the UCLA game simply because UCLA nationally they kicked our butts 2 years ago, and then like really really good, and then this year they dominated us. So you would think that I'd be saying UCLA, but it just seems that throughout the years in my lifetime, it's been Notre Dame.
Sure.
One reason the UCLA rivalry is second class right now is that UCLA would rather put tarps over seats at the Rose Bowl and prevent USC fans from attending the game than collect the revenue that UCLA desperately needs, because UCLA's has been running big budget deficits for several years running. But no, they would rather keep USC fans out of the stadium than make money. I mean, now that Now that is a really sad commentary on the state of the
It,
USC UCLA rivalry, all from the Bruins side, of course.
it is, but don't you respect that in a small way that they would rather
No,
than make the money?
actually, no. Actually, no.
Rather
Like,
than
like
make the money, they want to keep USC out of the stadium.
So, I mean, like it's a Los Angeles game, and you would deprive Angelinos, good, hard-working family people, from attending your game. What kind of statement does that make? Like, it's an awful statement every way around. Like there are better ways to express rivalry than that. There are much better ways. Pivoting back to USC Notre Dame. Folks, if you elect me president of the United States, not that I'm running, but if you do elect me president of the United States, I promise that I will put forth the funding for a John McKay, Ara Parsegian, ESPN 30 for 30 on Heisman night. 2 hours, not this 1 hour crap, 2 hours on really, in many ways, the most under-discussed, underappreciated great coaching rivalry in college football. And people might recoil at that and say, Matt, that's a hot take, that's recency bias, or that's like a knee-jerk, lazy take. I'm going to defend that claim because how much publicity did the 10-year war between Woody and Bo get? And how much publicity does that still get? And how much publicity does Steve Spurrier and Bobby Bowden get? Although ESPN has not done a 30 for 30 on those two either, which is also a national scandal and a disgrace. But how, McKay Parsegian, with all the battles that Tim was alluding to, with not just the titles that were up for grabs in those games, but also the spoilers on both sides during those years and the Heisman trophies that came from all that. Really, it really is the most under-discussed classic coaching rivalry in college football. It doesn't receive a quarter of the attention and the publicity that other celebrated coaching rivalries have received down through the ages. We have to have a 30 for 30 on McKay and Ara.
The problem is, Matt, is that again, you have to go back because either one or the other has been on top. You know what I mean? It hasn't been for a long time where USC and Notre Dame are both perennial top 10, top 15 teams, and then every 3 or 4 years we're going for a run for a national championship. It's been a long time since that. One will be up, the other will be down. So it's been like that. But I think a lot of the national interest in the game has come off. One, because ESPN's shoving SEC down everybody's throats. But the other part of that is just one or the other just hasn't lived up to the bargain that was kind of just a mainstay in college football for decades. And that also is a little bit difficult for fans to check out. One dominate the other for a decade. And that's what it's been, like a decade domination, and it's going back and forth.
We do this every Monday night, folks. So if you don't make this a regular stop, you are welcome to do so starting tonight and keep it going next week right here at the Voice of College Football. And every day is time to check out USC football, basketball coverage with Matt and with Tim at Trojans Wire.
Hey, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe for daily USC football content. Fight on.